moment Laura Lopes quietly walked back into Buckingham Palace carrying a dark velvet case under heavy security, palace insiders allegedly realized Princess Anne's warning had done something no royal confrontation had managed before. It had terrified Camilla's entire inner circle. Because according to explosive whispers now spreading through aristocratic circles, the Sapphire scandal everyone thought had already ended was apparently only the beginning. And this time, the jewel Laura allegedly returned was not just another royal accessory. It was rumored to be one of Queen Elizabeth II's hidden private sapphires, a piece so secretive, so politically sensitive that even senior royal staff rarely spoke its name out loud. What shocked palace staff was not only the sudden return itself, but the timing. Laura reportedly returned the sapphire barely 48 hours after Princess Anne issued what insiders described as the coldest private warning ever delivered inside Clarence House. No shouting, no public humiliation, just one quiet sentence spoken behind closed doors that allegedly made Camilla go pale instantly. Return everything before this becomes irreversible. And according to rumors leaking from staff connected to the royal residences, Anne already knew far more than anyone expected. For weeks, Buckingham Palace had supposedly been operating under suffocating tension after the Williamson diamond disaster allegedly exposed secret movements inside the royal vault system. Camilla had already lost authority over royal jewelry access. Catherine had quietly stepped into a stronger supervisory role. William had reportedly sided completely with Anne. But behind the scenes, another horrifying discovery was allegedly unfolding. Inventory records connected to Queen Elizabeth's private sapphire collection reportedly did not match archived vault logs dating back nearly 7 months. At first, officials believed it was a clerical mistake, a cataloging delay, a documentation issue buried during the transition after Queen Elizabeth's death. But then one senior archivist allegedly noticed something terrifying. One sapphire brooch listed in old royal photography records no longer appeared in updated vault scans. Not stolen officially, not missing publicly, just absent, quietly erased from circulation without explanation. Sources claim Anne personally ordered sealed historical inventories pulled from Windsor archives late at night while senior staff were sent home early. Security access around portions of the royal collection reportedly tightened immediately afterward. Even more shocking, insiders whispered that Anne stopped trusting several individuals previously connected to Camilla's office. The atmosphere reportedly became so paranoid that certain vault rooms were opened only under dual verification supervision directly tied to Anne and Catherine together. But the real panic allegedly started after one name appeared repeatedly in internal access conversations: Laura Lopes. According to aristocratic whispers now circulating through London elite circles, Anne became convinced Laura had knowledge of additional jewels temporarily removed from protected storage under unofficial permissions quietly approved during Camilla's influence over the collection. Nothing publicly traceable, nothing obvious enough to trigger scandal immediately, just enough movement to create confusion in future audits. And Anne reportedly viewed that as unforgivable. One palace insider allegedly claimed Anne felt this was no longer about jewelry. It was about Queen Elizabeth's legacy being treated like a personal family asset instead of protected royal history. That distinction reportedly enraged her beyond anything staff had witnessed in years. The meeting reportedly happened inside a restricted sitting room at St. James's Palace. No assistants, no press office, no advisors, just Princess Anne, Laura Lopes, and briefly Camilla herself, before Anne allegedly demanded to speak to Laura alone. Staff nearby later claimed the silence afterward felt unnatural. Nobody heard raised voices, nobody heard arguing, which somehow made it worse. Because when Laura finally emerged nearly an hour later, witnesses allegedly noticed her hands trembling while clutching a leather case tightly against her chest. And then suddenly, the rumors exploded. By the next morning, whispers spread through royal circles that another sapphire connected to Queen Elizabeth had quietly been returned to palace custody overnight. No announcement, no documentation released publicly, no photographs. But internal staff allegedly noticed movement inside the secured jewel rooms shortly after midnight alongside emergency authentication procedures. What terrified people most was the alleged condition of the sapphire itself. According to insiders, the jewel showed signs it had recently been removed from long-term royal storage and privately handled outside official preservation conditions. One source even claimed the sapphire setting carried tiny surface pressure marks suggesting repeated examination or transportation. If true, that meant the jewel may have been circulating outside protected palace systems for weeks, possibly months, and suddenly, everything became darker. Because insiders allegedly began questioning whether the Williamson diamond incident was ever an isolated event at all. Some palace figures reportedly started fearing there could be more undocumented movements hidden inside old approval systems established during the chaotic transition period after Queen Elizabeth's passing. Staff loyal to Anne allegedly began reviewing historical vault entries dating back years. Even lower-level employees reportedly sensed something was terribly wrong as security protocols intensified almost overnight. Camilla, meanwhile, was said to be unraveling privately. Sources close to royal household workers claimed she became increasingly isolated after Anne's warning. Fewer appearances, fewer informal meetings. Staff reportedly noticed visible strain whenever discussions involving jewels or archival collections surfaced around palace corridors. One insider even whispered Camilla feared Anne might eventually force a full public accounting of every jewel handled during her oversight period. And Laura? According to rumors, she allegedly broke down emotionally after realizing the palace already possessed more evidence than she expected. Because the terrifying part was not simply the Sapphire return itself, it was the possibility that Anne had strategically stayed silent while quietly gathering information for months. Some insiders now believe Anne deliberately allowed certain people to feel safe before tightening control all at once. That theory alone reportedly sent panic through individuals previously connected to unofficial jewel access approvals. One former palace employee allegedly described the atmosphere as a royal chess game where Anne already knew the ending. By the following weekend, Buckingham Palace reportedly looked calm from the outside, but insiders claimed absolute chaos was unfolding behind closed doors. Courtiers were allegedly whispering in corridors again. Private staff meetings were suddenly being moved to secured rooms. Even longtime household employees reportedly noticed that certain royal vault access routes had been restricted without explanation. Something was changing inside the monarchy, and according to growing palace rumors, Princess Anne was no longer operating quietly. She was moving openly now, with the confidence of someone who already knew exactly where the damage began. What truly intensified the fear was a leaked claim from someone connected to Royal Archive management who allegedly revealed that Anne had ordered an emergency cross-check between Queen Elizabeth's private handwritten jewelry records and the official digitized inventory currently stored by palace administration. That detail terrified insiders because Queen Elizabeth was known to personally track certain sentimental pieces separately from the broader crown collection. These were not simply jewels. They were emotional artifacts tied to private family moments, diplomatic relationships, and deeply personal royal history. If discrepancies existed there, the scandal could become catastrophic. One insider allegedly claimed Anne discovered references to a sapphire necklace Queen Elizabeth stopped wearing publicly years before her death, yet the official transfer documentation for its storage appeared strangely incomplete. Another source whispered about a sapphire bracelet tied to a private state banquet that allegedly vanished from circulation shortly after Camilla gained greater informal influence over royal jewelry selections. Nothing officially stolen, nothing publicly missing, but enough inconsistencies to make Anne believe a hidden pattern existed underneath the palace silence. Because Anne allegedly stopped viewing Laura Lopes as merely a nervous daughter dragged into royal politics by Camilla. Instead, insiders claimed Anne became convinced Laura had quietly operated as an unofficial intermediary for sensitive jewelry movements that would have appeared suspicious if requested directly through palace systems connected to Camilla herself. In other words, Laura allegedly became the perfect invisible bridge between private ambition and royal access. And suddenly, old rumors palace staff once dismissed as paranoia started resurfacing again. Stories about late-night vault requests, jewelry removed for private appraisals, pieces temporarily relocated without formal ceremony schedules attached. Staff allegedly began revisiting moments they once ignored because nobody wanted to accuse a reigning queen's household of crossing sacred boundaries connected to Queen Elizabeth's legacy. According to explosive whispers, Princess Anne allegedly arranged another private confrontation inside Windsor Castle after receiving updated reports from independent experts reviewing the recently returned sapphire. Present at the meeting were reportedly Anne, William, Catherine, Camilla, and Laura. Charles was said to arrive later after tensions had already exploded behind closed doors. According to palace whispers, Laura suddenly admitted there had been temporary movements involving certain pieces, but insisted she never intended permanent removal or theft. She allegedly claimed the sapphires were only being privately examined for authentication, valuation, and discreet investment discussions connected to elite collectors who wanted proof certain historical pieces existed. But Anne reportedly exploded at that explanation because Queen Elizabeth's private collection was never supposed to become leverage for personal business relationships or hidden financial influence networks. That was reportedly the moment Charles finally understood how deep the crisis had become. Insiders claimed the king looked physically exhausted while listening to Anne outline timelines, unofficial permissions, altered access requests, and gaps in documentation connected to Camilla's former oversight period. The emotional damage allegedly hit hardest when Anne quietly reminded the room that Queen Elizabeth spent her entire life protecting those pieces not because of money, but because they symbolized continuity, sacrifice, and trust between generations of the monarchy. Camilla reportedly tried defending herself again, insisting everything was misunderstood and exaggerated by internal hostility against her position inside the family. But according to whispers from palace staff, even Charles appeared shaken by the mounting details. One insider allegedly described the king's expression as the face of a man realizing private loyalty had created public danger. And after that meeting, the atmosphere reportedly changed forever. Camilla allegedly became increasingly isolated from internal royal decision-making involving historical collections. Anne and Catherine were rumored to have strengthened joint oversight powers quietly behind the scenes, while William allegedly pushed for expanded independent auditing systems to prevent any future unofficial movements involving royal assets. Some insiders even whispered discussions began about permanently restructuring how private royal jewelry collections are supervised moving forward.